assemblies and discussions about where to find help, because it happened to more people.
We thought. We were told what to do in the aftermath of the event.
And how to prevent it in the first place. We were told not to keep quiet, because that's not good for anyone. I've always been someone who anticipates the future. I've planned out my life since day one, like most of you, I'm sure. Taking the right classes, doing the right activities. I live my life on purpose, and I like to know what's coming up around the corner.
Personally, I was always told not to go anywhere alone. Don't walk home alone. Don't get into a cab alone. Don't do anything alone.
So when you, sober, pushed me into a room with you when I was drunk and stupid and a whole lot of drunk, and you pushed me down and held me there, and that, I wish you had told me what was coming my way.
Well, I'd been in Durham for 6 months at this point, so I obviously knew what I was doing. I was at Shooters, but I hadn't had anything to drink. Just a couple blocks from East Campus, everything was fine. I told a couple of my friends I was leaving. The girls were more hesitant to let me go, but I convinced them. I was clearly sober. I had my phone with me. It was fine. I started my walk, but after a couple of minutes, I felt someone following me from behind. I started walking faster. My pace was almost a jog. When I turned the corner around one of the fences surrounding East Campus, a heavy-set man put his arm out and said, "You're looking good tonight." I tried to walk past him, still phone in hand, still knowing nothing could really happen to me. Next thing I knew, 4 men of similar stature pushed me to the ground, all calling me things like sweetie, baby, and darling.
I wish you told me about the pain, the physical pain I would feel that next day. I didn't see it coming, and it certainly made pretending things were okay a little bit more difficult. And couldn't you have told me about the numbness? The aching numbness that penetrated my very core for days. Weeks. Months afterwards. Probably could have handled it better if you'd let me know about the flashbacks, the panic attacks, the sleepless nights I would spend after that, a slave to my own emotions and thoughts, crying endlessly, begging for something, anything to take me away from where I was.
I started kicking and tried to scream, but they had power in numbers and strength. My legs were braced and my mouth was tightly covered. It was at this point that no more emotion went through my body, just stone cold nothing. I knew exactly what was about to happen, and I couldn't do anything about it. People talk about how to prevent it in the first place. They talk about how to handle it after. But what are you supposed to think or feel when you're just lying there on the ground at the complete mercy of someone else?
I wish you told me about the loss. That I would lose control over everything. My rapid descent from the dean's list to academic probation, a minor detail. You were, in effect, taking away not only my boyfriend, but my best friends. Why couldn't you have let me know that no one would be able to put up with mood swings like that? That it would become normal to alternate between constant crying, sudden outbursts of anger, and utter emotional vacancy. And I couldn't tell them why I was acting that way.
Their whispers quickly turned to their mouths, brushing against my face and neck. The man's hand to his pants, and then I felt him being forced into me. When I made my final attempt to get up, the man who was holding my mouth went from a sitting position to a kneeling one. Hovering over me, he unzipped his pants and forced himself into my mouth. He took a knife out and quietly whispered that if I tried to move, I would be done. People talk about how to prevent it in the first place, but they never mention how to get out of it.
I wish you told me how terrifying the very idea of just saying the word rape becomes after this reality in your life.
Men, I have no idea how many surrounded me. One forcing himself in and out of my mouth. The other penetrating me at the other end. They gave each other high fives over my conquered body. They laughed and joked. I wish more than anything that I could cover my ears. Finally, the man pulled out just in time to finish. His cum was all over my face. He brushed his penis through my hair and told me that I was getting the best kind of conditioner. I just lay there. The other man finished inside of me and then commanded me to make him hard again. My mouth was pulled open by a separate set of hands. After a couple of minutes, he told me I was worthless, stood up, and they all walked away. I have no idea how long the whole thing actually lasted.
I could have used some advice too. If you just taken me aside beforehand, looked me in the eye and said, after this, you're going to have random sex with a lot of people. You'll do it to make yourself feel like what I did to you wasn't absolutely horrifying, but it isn't going to work. It's just going to make people think you're a whore. Maybe, if you'd done that, I wouldn't have been branded as the biggest slut in the junior class. My life would be so different now if you just told me that none of the things that I did then were going to take the pain away. That cutting calories and wrists can feel like control. But eventually you find yourself vomiting on the floor of a bathroom, wondering how you ever got to this place, pounding your head against the wall, hoping that it might trigger some receptors to finally, please just produce some serotonin to get me out of here.
I stood up, found my phone, and ran. I got back to my dorm, got into the shower with all of my clothes on, and then threw them away. I got to bed and went to sleep. I went to the hospital the Monday after. I left with 7 stitches and Plan B.
I wish you'd warned me. It's not a good idea to tell just anyone. My best friend and I were both drunk. But intoxication can only reveal one's true feelings, right? Her words will be in my mind and my heart for as long as it beats. Wow. But I mean, you were drunk. Have you ever thought
preach about how to not let yourself get in that situation in the first place. They say that these days, it usually happens with someone you know, not a complete stranger. So what now? It was my fault because I put myself in that situation. I guess so. Am I sincere because he was a complete stranger? Probably. To amend for my mistake, I reported what happened. I got help that I did not want. I told my boyfriend, even though I thought he would think I was broken and would never look at me the same way. I did everything I was supposed to do right away. Looking back on it 2 years ago, I wish I'd given myself more time on my own. Telling people is not always the right thing for everyone. But since I thought I'd done so much wrong already, I did everything to try and fix it. It didn't work.
But you know what I wish you told me the most? More than anything else. I wish you told me how long it would take. How long it would take to feel okay. To be my normal self again, or at least to feel normal. That it would take 4 months after what you did to me to even mention anything about it to anyone, and a full 8 months to be able to call it what it was. Right. That it would take just over a year for me to go to the Women's Center and session after session to steadily build my own belief in myself, to convince me that I hadn't done anything wrong. That I had worth as a person and had the right to be upset about my rape. That I am strong, important, and not defined by my life experience.
People tell me to get support after all those flyers in bathroom stalls, but what does that really do? It doesn't make telling your friends any easier. It doesn't help the feeling of thinking it's your fault. It doesn't help telling the person you love just a couple months into your relationship that a stranger fucked his girlfriend, but you don't consider that sex. It doesn't help the feeling of being damaged goods or of people looking at you differently. It doesn't help the tenseness that still comes back every so often when you want to have real sex by choice. It doesn't help the cringing every time someone mentions the word rape, which I wasn't able to say for months. It doesn't help the fact that trusting someone again is the hardest thing in the entire world. It doesn't help the nerves that rush through your body every time a stranger approaches. It doesn't help the image that still appears in my mind when I close my eyes at night. So yeah, telling people may be the right thing to do, but it doesn't help most things. Nothing does. And I don't know if anything ever will.
Recovering from what you did, it took time. As I took the long trip from an escapist, anorexic druggie to being back on the dean's list, a hyper-involved, powerful woman who I bet you couldn't distinguish from any of your friends. Time is ticking. According to Duke, rape had an expiration date, and mine, only until recently, mine was no longer valid. If you just told me how seeing your face again would feel, even now, 2 years later, walking around campus, or at shooters, or sitting next to me on the bus. When I make eye contact with you, I know that we both wishing in the world can't help me now.
A year after my rape, I received a phone call. They found him. I saw his face peering through the one-sided glass. I knew in a split second it was him. I made the ID, but I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. He's now behind